Welcome to Turkish Series TV. Today we bring you a selection of 8 short Turkish series you can enjoy fully dubbed in Spanish. These are intense stories filled with love, drama, and emotion that hook you from the very first episode without overstaying their welcome. Each one offers a different journey, from impossible passions to family secrets and second chances that leave a mark on the soul. But before we get started, it would help me a lot if you took a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your kind support. Number 8. The Red Scarf. I'm sad to tell you that The Red Scarf is one of those series that goes unnoticed and deserves far better than obscurity. In a small town in Turkey's interior, a hardworking young woman meets a motocross racer with dreams of glory. What sparks between them is intense, spontaneous, and real, but differences in their worlds and family pressures ultimately separate them. She's left with a son and a life she had to build alone. Years later, when both have grown and changed, their reunion forces them to ask whether what they once had still lives on. The story has a special sensitivity to details, the inland landscapes, the town's culture, the silences between scenes. There's something very authentic in the way it portrays young love and the consequences of decisions made too quickly. The problem is that the second half loses some of that initial spontaneity and falls into certain genre conventions the first part had managed to avoid. Some secondary characters feel forced, and there's a subplot or two that don't contribute enough to the main arc. Even so, the heart of The Red Scarf is genuine, one of the greats without question. Number 7. My Daughter. I think we all know the caliber of My Daughter within Turkish family drama. A little girl abandoned by her aunt sets out on a journey to find the father she never knew. With a letter as her only clue, she finds a man who has spent years surviving on the fringes of the law, a swindler tired of running. He accepts her as part of a deal, not out of love. And in that apparently cold and calculated dynamic, one of the most emotionally powerful redemption arcs Turkish drama has ever produced begins. The relationship between the girl and her father moves from total distrust to a love that transforms them both. That redemption arc, built with patience and detail, is the best thing the series has to offer. The lead performances are genuinely moving. However, it must be said, the format of nearly 50 episodes is excessive for the story being told. There are stretches where the plot extends unnecessarily, diluting the intensity the show reached at its best moments. Some conflicts repeat with minor variations instead of evolving. That said, when My Daughter is at its finest, it is absolutely irresistible. The ending of this story will leave you speechless. Number 6. Love Doesn't Understand Words. I can no longer hold back this series. Love Doesn't Understand Words is one of those productions that deserves to be rescued from obscurity. The story follows a young woman raised under the thumb of her uncle, who treats her like a servant and condemns her to a forced marriage with an older man. Desperate to escape, she connects with another young person equally wounded by abandonment and injustice. Together, they decide to flee to Istanbul to build something of their own from scratch. What makes this production different from typical Turkish romance is the genuinely dark tone with which it portrays its protagonist's living conditions before love arrives. There's no glamour, no villa, no wealth. There's poverty, fear, and the weight of tradition as a chain. When the romance finally arrives, it makes far more emotional sense because you've already understood everything it costs to get there. The weak point is that the second half of the show loses some of that initial energy and falls into certain genre cliches. Some subplots are unnecessarily stretched, and secondary characters steal screen time without adding much. But the underlying story, with all its imperfections, is among the most human I've seen. There it is. Number 5. At the Edge of the Night. Watch out for this series because At the Edge of the Night does something few productions in its genre dare. It places two men in love with the same woman in a triangle where neither is the villain. Kadir is a man marked by abandonment and loss, who finds stability in the family that took him in years ago. When Selin appears, a mysterious woman who awakens in him everything he thought was buried, he can't help but fall. The problem is that his mentor, the man who gave him a second chance, has also fallen for her. The setting between Istanbul and Turkey's interior gives the production an uncommon visual richness. The performances are solid, and the emotional tension holds for a good portion of the story. What falters is the second half. There's a point where the story seems to lose its direction, and certain conflicts are drawn out longer than necessary, as if the writers weren't quite sure how to close what they had built so well. There's also a secondary character whose decisions are inconsistent with their arc. But the heart of the story, that impossible question about love and loyalty, holds up. Give it a chance, and you'll find it hard to let go. Number 4. Endure My Heart. Sadly, I have to inform you that Endure My Heart is one of those series that arrives without warning and leaves you wrecked. Elvin is a neighborhood woman who juggles daily to support her family. She works, cares for her children, and puts up with a husband who isn't up to the task. What seems like a story of everyday survival transforms into something much darker when an accident in the neighborhood shakes everything around it. From that moment, Elvin's life changes in ways her family never could have imagined. The series has a very particular way of building tension, not through surprising dramatic twists, but through the accumulated pressure on a woman who already carries too much. That slow construction is one of its greatest strengths, but also its main weakness. There are episodes where the story moves little and the accumulation of hardships can feel heavy. There are moments where you wish the script would give its protagonist a break, and the ending, though honest, didn't satisfy all viewers. That said, the strength of the lead is so believable that it's hard to let go of this production, a story about human limits that stays with you. Number 3. Foster Mother. I'm not gonna lie, Foster Mother is one of those productions that demands far more emotionally than you expect. The story begins with Olive, a young university student who makes a grave mistake and pays a devastating price. She ends up in prison, and the daughter she couldn't care for grows up not knowing she is her mother. Those who raised the girl introduced her aunt to her as her real mother. When Olive is released from prison years later, the girl is already a young adult with a life built on a lie. What makes this series more than just a reunion drama is the moral complexity of all its characters. Olive isn't a perfect victim. She made terrible decisions. The aunt who raised the girl isn't a villain. She acted out of love. And the young woman at the center of it all has completely valid reasons to feel betrayed by everyone. The show navigates those contradictions with honesty and without searching for heroes. The weak point is that in some episodes, the level of crying and drama accumulates so heavily that it can become exhausting. There are stretches where the story moves in circles before advancing, but those who see it through from beginning to end find a resolution that, in the end, makes the whole journey worthwhile. Number 2. Interrupted. I'm sad to tell you that Interrupted is exactly the kind of series you finish in 2 days and then spend time searching for something that gives you the same feeling. Ozan is an idealistic journalist who lives to find the truth. He's about to marry Elif, his colleague and the love of his life, when a car accident kills him. But not everything ends there. Ozan returns to the world, only in someone else's body. And from that new identity, he'll have to do 2 things at once: find out who killed him and find a way to reconnect with the woman he loves without her knowing it's him. The premise is absolutely original within Turkish drama, and the series executes it with an energy that gives you no rest. The mix of investigative thriller, supernatural romance, and dark comedy works surprisingly well. What may create some friction is that at certain moments, the internal logic of the universe they've built stretches further than it can sustain, and there are twists that demand a total suspension of disbelief. That said, the emotional intensity is genuine, and the final episodes are among the most satisfying I've seen in a Turkish series of this format. I finished it in 3 days. Now you know. Number 1. The Affair Sakla. Listen closely, because The Affair is not the series you expect when you read the synopsis. On the surface, everything sounds familiar: a married writer and a young woman who meet during the summer in a coastal town. But this blue TV production has something few Turkish romantic series manage. It builds its story from silence. There are no grand speeches or orchestral music every time the characters look at each other. There are long takes, sunsets, conversations that say more through what they leave unspoken than through what they express. Ozan is a man overwhelmed by the life he leads. A stable but empty marriage, a stagnant career, the feeling that something slipped away from him without him knowing when. When he meets Asla, a young woman carrying her own invisible weight, something in both of them recognizes the other. What is born between them isn't easy to justify or condemn, and that moral ambiguity is the production's greatest achievement. The weak point is that some middle episodes feel repetitive in their emotional treatment, as if the story keeps circling in the same place before moving forward. But the atmosphere, the cinematography, and the honesty of the portrait make The Affair one of the most mature series in the recent Turkish catalog. That cannot be faked. And with the red scarf, we've reached the end of this tour through 8 Turkish series dubbed in Spanish. I hope you found at least one you want to watch this week. Each of these productions has something special to offer, whether it's romance, family drama, or mystery. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment below with whichever one caught your attention most, and share the video with someone who enjoys Turkish series. Until next time on Turkish Series TV,